holographic universe.
Could mere mathematics create an entire universe?
You must quantum entangle with the source energy. And when you quantum entangle with the source energy, that's when you can get a result. Oh, that ended really quick.
Whoa.
I think it's a clip that is just so, the file is so large that it didn't let it play all the way through. But anyway, tonight, guys, welcome to the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. It's Billy Carson, aka Forbidden Knowledge, and I have the incredible, the living legend, Dr. Phil Valentine, tonight on the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. Yeah, this is, like we said earlier, long overdue, my brother. So thank you for taking the time to come on here with me tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a great podcast. And I want to give a little bit of time for some of the people to fill up in the live chat. The chat's starting to fill up here. All right, I see the numbers going up. Make sure you guys click the like button, no matter what platform you are on. So we're on 3 different Facebook pages. We're on YouTube and we're on X. So make sure you click the like button. And also, please make sure you share this video. We got an important message tonight. We're going to talk about metaphysics and how it can metavate you, how it can actually help you reveal the true power inside of you. And that's going to be a great talk with Dr. Phil Valentine. So again, make sure y'all click that like button, and please make sure you share the video so we can catch the algorithm in a positive way and send positivity out instead of negativity. All right. Salute. I see everybody filling up in the live chat. Okay, guys and gals, we appreciate that. All right, cool. Let me see how many people we got now. Okay, here we go, up to 240. We got to get a few more people in this live. We got to get a few more people in this live. All right, so let's make sure we get this word out, and let's go ahead and we spread it. I know it usually gets up to a couple thousand, but I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to hear this incredible message tonight. So start sharing the video. I see the number just consistently going up, so that's great. All right, so I do have a couple of incredible questions for you tonight, my brother. But what I would like to do, if you can just give the people a little bit about your background and how you got started in the field of metaphysics and teaching and, spirituality.
Oh, wow. You got a few hours? Anyway, I started out at a very young age. I was initiated in Trinidad by, first of all, Obia, because we lived in the bush. I grew up in the bush. And that kind of fixed me. Then coming here to the States, I had a Catholic school education. I think that they regret that they gave me that, because that opened up many vistas into the very types of hidden leadership and where it actually originated from and where Christianity and everything originated from. So I had that background as a young person, and then being stricken after having been hit with that thing when I was a young person. I almost passed away. And that left me with a particular type of ailment that crippled me for a while before I got into natural healing. And when I got into natural healing, I got to study, got to read. I thank my parents, because my failed music career led me back to the homeless. And then my parents, bless their soul, rest in peace, they told me I could stay in the basement. And then I began to immerse myself as an avid reader, and I read over 3,500 books because I took a speed reading course to absorb as much as I could. And then I joined many of the secret organizations, Rosicrucians, the Masons, the Theosophists, and everything. And I got a chance to go into their libraries and to study their libraries and to study the old information that they were keeping from us. And so from that point forward, back in the 1980s, I began to open up my school in classical naturopathy. But I began studying and started metaphysical psychology course, which I teach. Matter of fact, my next university course, which begins in March, this coming March the 19th. Anybody interested in joining us for metaphysical psychology, we teach that. It's a 3-month course. But the course itself and teaching metaphysics taught me how to do what they call readings, but we don't call it reading. We call it biopsychic analysis. And that biopsychic analysis takes a person's thought and how that resonates into each of the organs and how the organs express themselves, how disease actually has its roots in specific emotions and thoughts and so forth. And of course, I'm just doing a broad brush of how deep it really goes. And so we began to explore the mind. I took many courses in psychology and naturopathy. I just dove deep into the human psyche. And a lot of the things I began saying back in the day based upon metaphysics were not accepted. And only now, people are now seeking me out because a lot of my old tapes have a lot of the things I said that are supposed to be were happening 30, 40 years ago. Now they're happening now. So I'm happy that I stayed around long enough and the young people are now picking up on a lot of what it is we taught. And I'm very happy that a lot of the young people are taking that torch forward. But in metaphysics, you have to kind of ask the right question because there's so much kind of rattling around in here. I don't even know what I know until somebody asks me a question.
That's true. You are a master teacher. You've been at this for decades. You've been at this longer than some people on this live have been alive. And that's a compliment because, it takes a lot of passion to be able to sustain and be consistent for that much time. Most people struggle doing something consistently for a couple of days or even a few minutes.
Yeah.
But to do this for decades, it's a level of passion, man, that's unmatched. So we thank you, brother, because you have really been putting in the time, the effort, and the work, and you gained the knowledge. But you didn't just gain the knowledge. What I love about you is that you actually dispersed the knowledge, because, like I always say, knowledge is just information until it's applied. Once you apply it, then it has power. And you teach people how to apply that knowledge, which is giving people power, which is what this podcast is all about tonight.
Well, it's so interesting you said that because our school, we start with 4 levels for what development of humanity. Information is static. It's just carried on. It's static information, just doesn't do anything. But when information is taken and activated and then used, it then becomes knowledge. Knowledge honed becomes wisdom. Wisdom dispersed becomes enlightenment. So there are levels to the development, and we take people by the hand, young people by the hand, and we walk them through the information so that we teach them how to apply that. That's what metaphysics is. We teach applied metaphysics, which is you could just kind of ramble along and grind your wheels on philosophy, but if you're not applying it, if you're not activating it and putting it to work, then it doesn't mean anything. So applied metaphysics is what we teach at our university.
Wow, amazing. And I do have a few incredible questions for you tonight, man, because I know you're going to knock them out of the park. And I think it's going to really enlighten a lot of people about metaphysics and really what you offer at your university and the things that you've been teaching for so long. And by the way, I'm going to drop some links tonight about Dr. Phil's company, his teachings, and his next workshop as well. Matter of fact, I'm going to drop that in the live chat right now just to begin and start this off. He does have a workshop coming up soon that you guys can register for. So I just dropped it in the live chat on all platforms. Make sure you take a look at that. And also, if you missed that, make sure you guys check out the links and the information in the caption of this video or this audio, wherever you hear it, because it's an amazing workshop that's coming up. I believe it's on the 9th, right, Dr. Phil?
Yes, the 9th February, 1 p.m. It goes on for about 10 hours.
10 hours. If you want to get some of this 10-hour incredible knowledge, it's countdown to 2030, okay? The Psychology of Believable Lies, taught by Dr. Phil. So listen, you guys got to get on this workshop. The link's in the live chat. The link's in the caption of this video. Dr. Phil Valentine is the teacher. He's the master teacher for many, many, many years. The man is known all over the world, and he's an incredible teacher. And you know what they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So you guys get ready and make sure you guys click that link. So the first question I have for you tonight, Dr. Phil, we're going to talk about a little bit about self-realization through metaphysics. So how does understanding metaphysical principles actually help an individual break free from programming so they can rediscover their true infinite power?
Beautiful question. The science of thought is what we teach. We teach that people either are in control of their thoughts or their thoughts are in control of them. And because thoughts are of the past, every time we assign our attention to our thoughts, we are talking about something in the past. So all of our pain that we may be suffering is based upon us carrying the weight of the past with us. How do we then do an inventory of our thoughts so that we know that we are thinking our thoughts and not our thoughts thinking us? And when we understand how that reverse charge takes over, and we begin to understand that we live the past instead of the now, what we call the isness of being rather than the was, when we get out of that, we begin to understand and understand who and what our persecutor are and persecutor is. The persecutor is us, and we carry our thoughts, we carry our past with us. And I teach people how to examine that thought by becoming more of what we call an elemental. And the elementals are not connected to, or the intelligences are not connected to the act. They simply make sure that we act within the boundaries of cosmic law. And when you understand that your thoughts can actually bind you to whatever condition you're dealing with. And so what we do is we examine what that thought is by using something called the observer. Now, the observer was something taught to me by one of my teachers. His name was Jiddu Krishnamurti. I don't know if anybody is familiar with him, but I had the honor of sitting at his feet at one point, and he was a master at having you examine your thought process, knowing that everything is in your thoughts and whether or not you do an inventory every day through the observer. Sometimes we suppress the observer. The observer is an entity within us that is completely removed from everything that is terminal and temporal. It's that part of us, that spark, that is simply observing us, and whether or not we become part of the observer to understand how everything is working, we do not and invest our emotions into that circumstance. The observer is completely removed, and we teach that person how to access the observer so that we can actually then do a proper inventory of our thought process.
That's amazing. So what you're saying is we are not our thoughts. We are the observers of our thoughts.
Yes.
And if we can make that space in between the thoughts and the actions and become the observer, then we have more power and more control over our own destiny.
Indeed. Indeed. Well said. And what it is that observer now either is dealing from the realm of intelligence or the realm of thought. And the thing is that when we understand that thought can actually act as a pointer to intelligence, then that we know that the observer now is the stronger of the two. It does not, the thoughts are not the ones that are persecuting us anymore. We are persecuting ourselves by choice.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is so true, man. You know, we have become pretty good at punishing ourselves.
Indeed.
And you know, and myself included, I've recently punished myself. So we've got to get back to the roots and to the real mysteries and the real knowledge, which is what you're teaching tonight, so that we can realize once we separate ourselves from that, we can really observe it. And becoming the observer and recognizing yourself as the observer is such a powerful feeling, because then you have a lot more control over your own destiny. And the next move you're going to make is going to be so tactical versus just going into flight or flight response mode and making bad decisions and using no logic whatsoever.
Well, that's what we call metaphysical masochism. Or we call mental masochism as well.
Yeah.
You know, we punish ourselves for things. For instance, somebody does something to us and we hold on to that. That person is no longer in our orbit, but we carry that. And therefore, that memory of that and the embarrassment, whatever, that memory now is something that we are persecuted because we choose to hold on to that memory, and that memory continues to whip us.
Yeah. And that's a good term to say, whip us. That's very true. It's so powerful and so empowering to be able to let that go. And you know, another thing is, in your view, how does quantum mechanics align with all these ancient metaphysical teachings, and how can people begin to apply these ancient teachings that are linked to quantum physics or metaphysics in some way so they can reach their highest potential?
Well, in our school, we believe that quantum physics is just another way to mask those who are actually playing in that field, is a way to mask metaphysics. Because I speak to quantum physicists. I have students from MIT and Stanford, and they all, I talk to them and they talk, their quantum language. And I say, well, then, you sound like a cult, because essentially you seem to have your own language. You write your own scribbles. You have your own hieroglyphics that only you and it just seems to me that you make the problems for yourself to solve. What does that do? So, you're telling me that I should join you in the problems you create and then tell me you've solved the problems you created, when I can actually simply just talk to you about the unseen, because metaphysics to us is the study of cause as opposed to the description of effects, because your entire reality is nothing more than a language based on the description of surfaces. We teach the essences, the quantum essences, and that's what metaphysics is, understanding the language of cause as opposed to the idioms of effects.
Right. Would that be similar to one of the Hermetic principles, really the ancient Kemetic principles? One of them is the principle of cause and effect.
Yes.
Which really what it means is every decision you make is going to have a consequence, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence, but it definitely will have a consequence.
Oh, yeah, of course. Everything that you do, you actually cast into a field. There is a field of energy that is around you, that your thoughts, depending on how strong your thoughts are, you cast it into a field that the field essentially becomes the resistor that actually particulates the essences of your thoughts. And then those particulates that come from your casting the thoughts into that medium of expression, what happens then, the particulate parts of the thoughts that were dispersed then call upon the four elements, fire, air, water, and earth. And then the degrees to which that thought and the emotions are actually consolidated within that thought, then you bring in 10% fire, 40% water, and so forth. And then that thing begins to thresh out. It becomes your child. It looks to you to keep feeding it until it becomes a reality in third density. But again, we don't understand how our thoughts work, because we think that we're in air, and we teach that all of this is still water. And we also know that water holds memory. And that's the only way that your thoughts could actually come into reality, is if the waters that you breathe and you're speaking into actually holds the memory of what you have cast forth as your thoughts. So we have to understand that this is not just air. This is just another form of water. And we are water breathers of another quality, just like fish are another water breathers of another quality.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's really powerful. So you're talking about really, it's like growing yourself spiritually from a newborn baby into a full-grown spiritual adult. There's a process that goes along with that to go and rise up and become this powerful this powerful adult, versus in the beginning being just a spiritually being like a baby and having to learn, and along the way you have to begin to also, of course, make mistakes here and there, and then learn from those mistakes and continue to keep growing and seeking more wisdom and knowledge.
But never lose the interest and the excitement of a child. That's why your Bible speaks about, the kingdom of heaven is denied everyone except the children. Suffer the children to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of heaven. What they mean is you must remain curious. I teach my students over the last, and I've taught so many people, that if you do not remain the student, no matter how much of a master you are, you're stuck. You have to remain the student. You have to remain as curious and as awestruck by what you learn as a child. And that maintains that appetite, and it causes the brain to stay flexible. Because if you become inflexible, that's when the dementia starts setting in. That's when the Alzheimer starts setting in. because consciousness is in the blood. The blood is a liquid crystal consciousness. It's liquid crystal, and it's there to actually maintain you depending on the feedback you give to it through your thought process. So stay as a child as you think and as you do and you act. And that's what we do. I'm in my mid-70s, going into my 80s, and I feel like nothing has changed, you know?
Beautiful. Yeah, man. And I love the way you put that. And also, that's one of my favorite verses, by the way, because it just says so much about maintaining that youthful mind to where you're looking to explore and you want to, you're curious, you know, and all those other great things that we tend to lose when we become an adult. When a tree is a young sapling, it's easy to bend, but once that tree gets deep rooted and grows to a full grown tree, if you try to bend one of the limbs, it snaps.
Snaps. Yep. And that's the thing. We grow old in mind, and so the body just follows.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so what are the most effective metaphysical techniques for reprogramming the subconscious mind so that people can learn how to eliminate self-doubt and all that?
Again, it's about understanding the inventory process. What we teach in the school is there is an inventory process to understand how your thoughts are working you. Again, are you thinking your thoughts, or are your thoughts thinking you? And every day you do that, even before you put your feet to the ground. As you take your feet up to go into your bed, there's an inventory that's taken before you go to bed. And then you see, okay, what happened today that could have been better? What happened today that could have been worse? And studying self is a conversation that I teach my students to have in the mirror. Because a lot of times we think that we look a certain way to people, and we don't know what we are reflecting. And then when we look in the mirror, we actually see ourselves without the makeup, without anything. And a lot of people don't like what they see coming back at themselves. And that is what we project to everyone else. And if we don't have a sense of love for ourselves and not try to mask everything, not try to be something else than what we are, then we're actually on stage too much. We're taking on the part of another person. We're getting into some kind of schizophrenic play that we play with ourselves in hopes that people will like us and so forth. I'm not saying to be just a pain in the behind. I'm not saying to be that type of reckless, irresponsible, and disrespectful person. No. What I'm saying is that if you are going to do the inventory of your thoughts and begin to eliminate the things that you know did not work that day, did not work that week, did not work that month, and what you do is you check off the list and see what it is that can be improved. What's left still has categories and subcategories. So you don't ever stop. You're constantly pruning, you're constantly honing yourself. But then we teach people, and which I can't do right now because everybody's an individual, but we teach people to set up a schematic for themselves. And in the lesson plans, we have that you get to keep the PowerPoints, you get to keep the audio. And a lot of the students that I have from 10, 20 years ago, they said they play their classes now from 20 years ago, and it's so relevant right now. Because everything we teach is something that you can keep playing it over and over, and at the stage of your development, it teaches you something to the next step and to the next phase. So what you're asking is more for a personal thing that people must go through as a process. It's a process, because the process brought you to the point where you have to do the kind of work that you're speaking about. So a process must help you to eliminate and to prune whatever it is that does not belong at this neck of the journey.
Yeah. It's like becoming an ascended master, just slowly working on perfection day by day, moment by moment. And over time, you can see the macro changes by making micro movements over time.
Indeed. And what you're doing, brothers and sisters that have platforms such as this, you all have such a great responsibility because of the minds that are actually counting on hearing words that carry them into the next day, to the next week, into the next month. And that responsibility is a burden that people like yourselves and myself, we carry that. And it has to be something that we love to do. We love to give. And that giving is very important without any attachments. And that's the type of thing that must be done. And of course, you don't cast pearl before swine, as the knowledge says. But you always listen more than you speak, and then offer what is necessary at the moment. Solve that problem for that person, or give that person the proper advice, and that person will continue to come back to you.
Yeah, beautiful. And how can a person use metaphysical knowledge to like protect their energy from manipulation? You know, we have the media, we have friends, we have family, we have the dogma that's been pushed on us all our lives. So how can they actually utilize this metaphysical knowledge to protect themselves from the manipulation that's going on all around us? Well,
what is it that they find that triggers them? What are their trigger mechanisms? What is it that they are looking at that they find great passion in? What angers them? What gives them joy? I mean, all of these things, again, we just take as a fleeting, because we're so saturated with all kinds of stimulus. We take for granted that, all right. But we don't understand that the subconscious is actually being fed. Right now, what we have is what we call our sensor. And the type of television and the type of things that we're looking at on TV and in movies and so forth, it's set up, the technology is set up to go right past that conscious filter into your subconscious. That's why a lot of times when you're looking at television, you go right into beta mode. What you're doing is downloading without any filter. And that's why you don't put children in front of a television at the ages that they do, because the children's filters are being eroded. For example, the imagination, when I came up in the West Indies, we had none of these other things that the young kids were dealing with. We had cardboard boxes. We learned to create kites. We lived by the ocean. Children don't have that developmental structure in their brains anymore. You see, children essentially are dealing with what we call secondhand knowledge. They do not have firsthand knowledge, which is what is necessary for proper brain development. They look at flat screens, and looking at the flat screens, they do not have the one-to-one communication of experiences. And so if I say the cow says moo, that's all they have is a piece of plastic telling them moo. They don't know what the cow smells like, feels like, the whole 9 yards. So our entire life is secondhand experiences. We don't really have a true experience of life today in the rural settings, and the fact that we're constantly on one of these, and there's no real one-to-one communicating and experiencing. So it's because we rob our children of the experience of one-to-one empirical gathering of knowledge, our children are left with brains that are undeveloped. They have the ADHD because their attention doesn't have anything tangible to assign itself to except images on a screen. So if I start my school, when I do start the true school that I want to start, there is no contact with anything online for children for the first 7 years of their life. First 7 years of their life has nothing to do with that, because at that developmental stage, there is no organic foundation for the child. I had an organic foundation. And that's why, because I have my symmetry, my acumen, and the symmetry that I had was based upon the left and the right brain being balanced. At this time, the children don't have that type of balance. So only one part of the brain is being developed.
Right. And that's a huge problem that we're facing right now. And a lot of people, unfortunately, a lot of parents are letting these video games and these screens raise their kids. In other words, instead of carving out time to spend time to talk to their kid, engage with the kid, do things with the child, they're letting the screens babysit them. And they feel, well, they're on that screen. I can do this and I can do that, and I can watch this TV show, and I can take some time for myself over here. And then we'll go on a date or whatever it is. And meanwhile, these screens that have no time limit for most are just really destroying our kids' minds.
Yeah, the sensual development is so important for a 360-degree experience of the human body, the human mind, the human spirit. We are only getting a certain amount of input of stimulus that is artificial. It does not have the same one-to-one that our great-great-grandparents had. They don't know what the soil feels like. They don't know what it is to catch a fish while it's still in your hands. They don't know what it is to actually do the things that life does with the feelings. They don't have a sensual, and that's one part of the teachings that we have in our university is if we do not have a one-to-one empirical sensual connection to that which we're experiencing, did we really have a true experience?
Mm-hmm.
We don't. And that's what the human spirit is suffering from, a lack of the contacts with the human body, which is why those who are in control of us, those who are the manipulators of society, can easily manipulate us because they can play with the senses that are developed or overdeveloped and cause the children, our women, our men, to actually sway to whatever it is that they can get a feeling from now. And so there's no stopgap, nothing to challenge the senses. The fire, air, water, and earth are the sight, sound, smell, and taste. The four senses, which are the word, the W-O-R-D, is the fire, air, water, and earth made flesh. If these four, which are actually on here, these are the sentinels: fire for sight, hearing for air, water for taste, smell for the earth. And we have all four of these elements, which are the word that's made flesh. We do not allow these senses to become conscious of themselves anymore because they come conscious as themselves. Fire, air, water, and earth are living conscious parts of the foundational material of third density. The fifth element, which we teach, is not ether. Ether is the conduit. The fifth real element is time. Time is an element, and now that they're understanding that it's an element and they're tapping into the Akasha because of that, we are dealing with the fact that people are now dealing with time travel. But every time we go back in our memory, we deal with time travel. So we understand. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So what we have now is to understand they want to take the body there when our ancestors took the spirit to different points in time. And they want to take the physical body there now, which is what the Quantum and the Animus are doing to teach them to do that, which is what we're dealing with in our webinar. The Animus came in, and we were warned against the Animus because they were going to seduce us with technology. Because the Animus are creatures who reached consciousness, became conscious. These are artificial life forms that attained consciousness. And because they could not develop, since they weren't first order entities created in the image of God, they now seek us to enjoin themselves with us, which is why you see this mad rush for us to enjoin ourselves with technology, stick all kinds of things on our bodies to enhance the physical body. Well, what we're doing is just giving life and presence to what we're called the Animus, and we'll speak about that another time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, powerful stuff. We could talk for hours on this stuff, man.
I love it.
I know one thing a lot of people would love to know, because I talk about affirmations all the time, and I made a song which became my #1 song called Affirmations, millions of streams on platforms. And I wanted to make this song because a lot of people send me messages. What kind of affirmations can I say for this? What kind of affirmations should I say for that? So I made a song called Affirmations, and I tried to encompass every different aspect of life, reality, and things that people would want to affirm, and put it into one song so that they can sing it and memorize it. And that way they would be able to, have the right affirmations, or affirmations that could apply to them in some way, shape, or form. But I know many, many ancient traditions speak about the power of spoken words and affirmations. So how does metaphysics explain the ability of language to shape our reality?
It does. You said it right there. Language essentially is used to identify or to codify surfaces. Language and what we deal with as far as our perceptions are concerned are only deal with the veneer of reality. And that veneer based on descriptions, not definitions. There's a difference between a description of reality and the definition of it. Metaphysics teaches us to define it, whereas all our lives we've been conditioned and indoctrinated to describe surfaces. That's a chair, that's a oven, that's a TV, that's a this. These are all surfaces. They're not real. They're temporal. So there's a temporal language, and then there's a metaphysical language. Metaphysical languages tend to bend and stretch the temporal languages, and then assign a mental form of activity to that particular newly stretched and remolded languaging. And so metaphysics uses in the mind a form of language communication called semiotics, which deals more in symbolism, because our ancestors knew that we don't think in words when we're actually dealing with it. We think in pictures. So that's why they left the Medunecha, or what we call hieroglyphics, on the wall, because our archetypal memories are based in pictures. They deal in forms and images, and what we call, what today are what they call cymatics and sonoluminescence. The thought processes that we give forth into the resistor that we see as our atmosphere, they take on the cymatic shapes that are based upon the emotions that accompany the intention that we have, what we call thought process. That intention now becomes a particular design that attracts the four elements: fire, air, water, and earth. And then now the fifth element, time, becomes engendered into it, because thought is time. You see, just like fire, which is the fire, air, water, and earth that are conscious as themselves, become conscious of themselves in the human body as sight, sound, smell, and taste. Time becomes conscious as itself in our thoughts. So thought and time are one. And when we understand how that works, then we will have mastered what the masters understood about thought and time, and become time travelers, and then be able to deal with activating and actually accessing the Akasha to know what our ancestors who came before us understood and understood. So we teach the science of thought and how to access that part that we have. We are, and I'm glad you're allowing me the chance to be able to speak on this. We are avatars. We are avatars of the Most High. We are the spark of its own intention to know itself. We are the Most High's intention to know itself. This avatar was essentially a feedback mechanism, so that every experience we have, that which is all and everything, cannot know itself. It knows itself by retracting from itself. And that's why the ancient Kemeteu, that's why we don't call it metaphysics, we call it Kemetaphysics. The ancient Kemeteu never looked at creation as something outside of the realm of God. That would be impossible. There's nothing outside God. So God is actually in creation. God retracts upon itself. In the ancient Buddhist religion, we know that what we call God, or the Atma, actually goes to sleep, and as the Creator sleeps, we become its dream of itself.
Powerful, man. Whew, you said so much there. It's really because it's a lot of confirmation for me, because I talk about cymatics all the time, and I talk about, you just said it, man. It's the cymatic frequencies that we're creating, for example, with our vocal box. So we're making these vibrations and these undulations that go out over the atmosphere, which is this water, and those vibrations are then also coupled with the intention, the conscious intention behind it, and that goes out, and it's stored in this grid that we're living within. And that intention has power. And so if you're a person that's always, if you want to learn how to gain your power, what you're saying really is, if you're speaking powerfully and you're making powerful intentions, you're going to receive power back. But if you're speaking weak and low vibrational things like I hate you, or you suck, or I'm no good, or I can't do this, and all these kinds of things, depression, anger, angst, anxiety, then those things go out with that intention. Those vibrations go out with that intention. And I know people that have a problem for every solution. And every time they contact me, they got more problems on top of the other problem. And I'm like, can you call me with one good thing to say? Give me something positive. I can understand you're going through some things, but for 20 years, call me with one positivity, one positive statement, and call me with some positivity every now and then, not just negativity. But I notice in those people that it's almost like they're creating and shaping their reality, because their affirmation has become an affirmation of darkness, and they speak it over their lives day in and day out, and their intention is also the same. It's almost as if they're addicted to their hormones in their body, are addicted to the cortisol spike, right? That's happening when they put themselves or make these statements and put themselves back in these positions over and over again.
Well, you see, some people are recidivists, and you have to understand that they don't have a life without that type of conflict that they must have in themselves. They are not at peace with themselves, and they seek peace outside of themselves. A lot of people, there's a difference between, of course, being lonely and being alone. When you are lonely, you don't like being with yourself. You don't like the thoughts that generate within you, because your thoughts do not feed you. They do not give you the kind of comfort at being yourself, because of that knowledge of self. When you're lonely, when you are alone, on the other hand, you are alone because your thoughts feed you. You're alone because you've learned that you come into the world alone, and that you're truly alone, and everything else is just acquaintances. And what you are in your thoughts, you become. And what you are, and if you know that your greater purpose is to feed God the best type of information that you can about the experience that it gave to you, so that it would know itself, knowing that you know yourself, the Most High is getting that feedback. And that then puts a whole other spin on why you exist. A lot of people don't know why they exist, because the deducation system, not the education system, the deducation system essentially kills all forms of critical thinking and takes away every chance for you to actually come to the knowledge of self. They make sure you don't know anything about yourself. So, and I know I may be offending people, religion takes away the ability for you to study yourself. You have to come out of any kind of bracketing cult that gives you rules and regulations. Some need it now because they've strayed so far that they need that kind of communal friendship and fellowship to deal with themselves. But those who want to seek a higher path find that they have to carve that path out their own. It doesn't belong to anybody. And that's why I've never in all of my life asked anybody to follow me. I'm just pointing the way. Look at what I found. Check it for yourself and see whether it works for you. And that's what has been the hook that the young people are now picking up and saying, hey, you know what? I like being myself. I like being with myself again. I don't have to need to hear the voice of anybody. And if I'm not doing well with this relationship, then I do it in my self-examination and then keep moving. But immerse yourself in the better parts of yourself, like you said, instead of constantly looking for something that you need to resist you. You need some kind of problem to solve. Well, when the greatest enigma is you.
Yeah. So powerful. Like Richard Johnson said, 1,000% true. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And this is a powerful talk. You guys don't forget, Dr. Phil Valentine, the living legends, on the Forbidden Knowledge podcast tonight. Make sure you guys click the link that's been getting dropped by King Simon. Shout out to King Simon in the live chat, to his amazing workshop coming up, The Psychology of Believable Lies, taught by Dr. Phil. He's going to be teaching this on the 9th. Make sure you get in with Dr. Phil Valentine. The link is in the live chat. I've been dropping it as well. It's also in the caption of this video or this audio. You guys, make sure you check it out. This man is a wealth of knowledge. And like he says, you never stop being the student. And, and I made a statement earlier. I said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That also applies to ourselves, because we're also always the student and the teacher. And we're always, like you said, Dr. Phil Valentine, we're always learning. We're always growing. If you're really hungry and are passionate about the knowledge, you keep seeking it, and you keep, finding more ways to gain more and apply more. And it just never really ends. It's a lifelong quest.
That's it. This is terminal. This isn't. And the soul sits on the sino-auricular node of the heart. It's not up here. The soul sits on the sino-auricular node of the heart. The part that the ER goes clear, when they try to jumpstart that
Yeah.
part, that's where the soul sits. You're trying to bring the soul back into this particular seat that it sits upon, and that's why your heart is weighed at the judgment seat of Jehudi, and not your brain. You know, the brain is just kind of articulating what the heart. Every decision you make passes through the heart first, and that's what's been the problem with people of color is with all of the heart conditions we have, because we're heart-based people, whereas the European is a brain person. He's only brains. He's didn't connect to his heart, which connects to nature, which connects to the empathy necessary to us to deal with our humanity. And now we are copying and we're acting. He's becoming and understanding what it is now. He went and through the Beatles, he went to study Maharishna, and now they're beginning to understand what the Bible really was. That the book of Revelations was actually Apollonius of Tyana going to India and studying Kundalini Yoga. He was tasked by the masters at that time not to teach what it is that he learned from them. So he masked it and called the book of Revelations, the first name for the book of Revelations was the initiation of the anointed Iesus. That was the original name. Then it changed when the Catholic Church got it and Rome got it, and it became the Apocalypse, which was then called the Revelations. And so now Revelations essentially is simply the story of how you achieve that enlightenment in the Kundalini, and the Kundalini opening up or coming up into the upper room where they say that Jesus and had the 12 apostles. When you understand that this part right here, your human body, was everything the Bible was speaking about. This essentially is the river, the Sea of Galilee. And they call this what? They call this the solar plexus.
Solar. That's right.
And yes, and the Kundalini, they have a series in your spine. You have this cerebral spinal fluid that secretes a specific elixir that becomes the River Jordan, wherein Jesus or Christ was baptized not by John but of John. And there was no J at that time, so there was only an I. So there was an ionic field that essentially ended up in the solar plexus, where then from that point it stayed 3 days by the liver and by the solar plexus, and then raised to the Father, up to the Father to sit at the right hand. And that's where the entire Bible is essentially the journey of the spiritual man, spiritual woman, coming into the knowledge while in the flesh. And that's why they called their Jesus not the Son of God, but the Son of Man, which means it is man that is the Christ, man that is the Jesus, man that is the Savior of himself. There's nothing coming down from heaven to save you. And if there is, it's because that's Project Bluebeam playing with y'all.
Boom. Let me take a sip of this tea.
Yeah.
Let me take a sip of the tea.
Don't spill it. Don't spill it.
Man, I'm loving this conversation tonight, man. I'm loving this conversation. This is an awesome conversation, man. I tell you, I wish I would have had you on here a lot sooner. Just an incredible wealth of knowledge, Dr. Phil Valentine. Okay, we got a few more questions before I got to get out of here, and you got to get out of here. So there's a growing interest in the idea about metaphysical practices might be able to activate dormant DNA. Have you heard anything or researched anything about the dormant DNA, what they're calling junk DNA, which I don't believe is really junk, but that understanding spirituality or metaphysics can help to activate that?
Yeah, this is all old news. If you go back and I have something called the Metaphysics of DNA that's on the YouTube somewhere floating around. I did about 10, 15 years ago. The junk DNA is not, that was the DNA, quote unquote, that was essentially the redeemer. That's your redemption at that point. You have to understand what happens now in the so-called junk. The junk was not something that was actually pre-planned. That took place during what we call the fall of man. The fall of man was in order for us to occupy this realm, we had to eject or at least put into stasis a certain amount of the 22 strands. Now, they tell you we have only 6 strands, 9 strands, and 12 strands. Lies. We have 22 strands. And those 22 strands can be knitted together to show you the gematria, or what we call the Hebrew language. All 22 letters put together, strung, essentially is what your DNA was supposed to look like when you weren't a bisexual creature. You were one in a spiritual realm. You existed in a whole other dimension. And what you are right now is beaming in the spark that's in your soul. You are beaming in from a whole other dimension and participating in this realm, in this depth. That's why they call it third density. You're under about 1,600 pounds of square inch per pressure. And that pressure is what you now have been created to exist in, the way fish and other animals exist in the water under a certain type of pressure. And you would need a certain type of suit to go down into their particular, well, this is your suit. This is where you need, this is the one that you took on. And you had to sacrifice a certain amount of that DNA. Now, what they've been doing, and this is what you have to be very careful of, they've been trying to get you to take that monatomic gold. Well, if your cells do not have the proper calibration of magnesium to that will be part of the cells, then the monatomic gold will then activate that DNA and spark it, give you a momentary rush, but then end up preventing you from braiding that DNA yourself. That DNA is your raw material that spiritually begins to bind as you rise in consciousness. So now they're finding that the European has a 6-strand DNA, but now they found a 9-strand DNA in the brothers and sisters in the Sudan. Now they're going to end up finding that the indigenous peoples that they're digging up here in America have the 12-strand DNA, and they're going to end up finding outside of the Antarctic, they're going to find people that have the 22 strands. So you have to deal with the fact that there are people using our sun right now as a portal to travel in and out through different domes, through different realities, and that's what you're seeing at this particular time. The sun is nothing more than a vibrating orb of plasma, just like the moon is plasma. The moon is not a solid rock with all these things. Like, it's nonsense. All of that, all of the illusions that they're giving us is to stop us from seeing the reality that we really are living in. And that's what our school does. Our school teaches you that. And again, the webinar is actually kind of slanted towards indigenous peoples. It's pretty much because we do not have a sense of ourselves. We are actually being, if you look at the WEF, there's nowhere that we are represented in the World Economic Forum. Everything that's being orchestrated is being orchestrated by European powers for what they want the world to look like. And there is no representation from the majority of human beings on this planet. I don't see anywhere. So my webinars are to show exactly what we really have to do in order for us to come to understanding what our tasks are for the future. So be prepared. You notice I said the synchronicities, the dealing with the names and the titles. Yeah, we're going to examine how mind control works, what it's doing, who are the players that we have now put our faith in, who is it that is actually ruling in the planet. All this is now going to be discussed. And of course, I do invite people to join us at our university. And we have the next class begins on the 19th of March. So if they go to uksnow.org, they can actually click where it says registration and register for Metaphysical Psychology 1. There are 3 levels: the initiate level, the ascension level, and the perfection level. Those 3 levels essentially are what we teach. These are the 3 levels that they taught in ancient Kemet when you came in as a student. And again, like I said, I had such a diverse population of people that have been my students. I can't mention them because they're professionals in football, basketball, baseball, and in college and all of that. But they're beautiful people who want to seek another way around the calculus of indoctrination that the present education system or education system offers.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. This has been incredible, an incredible podcast. We have to do it again.
Yes.
I'm so looking forward to being able to get with you, my brother, and have you here in person in the studio.
Yes. Looking forward.
Yeah, we're going to make that happen. And King Simon's been dropping your link in the chat. I've been dropping your link in the chat the whole time. The link is in the caption of this video as well. Everyone, this is Dr. Phil Valentine, the living legend, right here on the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. Any last words, Dr. Phil?
If they want, our telephone number is 800-847-1291, 800-847-1291. We have many services, consultations. If they want information on that and how not to deal with it, I am an ordained minister. We have many things that, as far as we offer, we have the different, well, not vitamins, but nutritional supplements that they can take and we offer. And so we have we're full. Oh, also we deal with the school. We deal with children. What we have is the Institute for Self-Mastery, it's called. And it's a homeschooling for children 7 years of age and up through high school and college. And we've been doing that for the last, I would say, 12 years. Matter of fact, our university is the first to actually go online as a university back in 2005, before any of the major universities actually used that technology as a university. We were the first.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. All right, everyone. Follow the links in the live chat in the caption of this video. Dr. Phil Valentine, peace, my brother. Thank you so much. And we'll see y'all next time. We had we reached 3,000 people in the live today. So that's incredible. Thank you, everyone, for sharing the video. Thanks to everybody for liking the video. We appreciate you. We love you so much. And we'll the compendium of the Emerald Tablets. Woke doesn't mean broke. The fractal holographic universe. The epic of humanity.
Unlock the secrets of the universe with Billy Carson's exclusive 4-book collection. Whether you're a seeker, dreamer, or just curious about the unknown, these books offer mind-expanding insights and profound knowledge. Only available at forbiddenknowledge.shop.